our conference and on our presentation. This session is going to be a short one because we just have two presenters. But before they can come in, there are a few things I need to point out. Each presenter has about 12 minutes to present, which comprises of 10 minutes of the presentation and just 2 minutes for questions and answers. And I'm requesting for us to kindly keep the questions short and also to use the chat to put in our questions. Also, I'm requesting the presenters to put their presentation in slide mode so that it is easier to follow. And at the end of this session, just like in the morning session, we are going to have a poll where we are going to answer the poll before we exit the session. So kindly make sure that you answer the poll. Because we are only going to have two participants in this session, I'm requesting the participants, they can join other breakout sessions that are of interest to them. Thank you. Can we have the first presenter? That is Mina. Mina, are you in? And then as Mina is loading the presentation, Toroitich. Is Toroitich also in? Should be ready with her. Mina? Is Mina in? What about Toroitich?
Hello, Chair. Toroitich is in.
Toroitich is in, eh?
I'm in, and I would like, I don't have my slides with me, but I send them to the Secretariat.
Yes.
So if you could assist with sharing of the slides on your end.
Yes.
I will appreciate.
That is okay. We can start with you as we wait for Mina to join. Maybe the Secretariat will assist in loading your slides.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, you can start. You have 10 minutes.
Yes. Good afternoon. I think the slides need to be
in presentation mode.
Yes, please. Okay, so today, my name is Faith Toroitich. I'm from Biological Sciences Department of Egerton University. And today I'm going to talk about a documentation of the knowledge, attributes, and experiences of beekeepers in a non-traditional beekeeping community. And we're going to use the case of Siaya County in Kenya. Next slide. So as a way of introduction, I'd say beekeeping is one climate smart activity that has the potential to improve the livelihoods of people through production of products, because through beekeeping, several products can be realized, which include honey, beeswax, royal jelly, propolis, bee venom, and others. And it can also improve agricultural productivity through pollination of flowering plants and crops. The Kenyan statistics show that average annual production, back to the first slide, please, to that slide. Production of honey in Kenya is at an annual of 25,000 metric tons, but the potential is at 100,000 or more per annum. So there is a gap. We are not yet even realizing 50% of our honey production as a country. We have what we refer to as traditional beekeeping counties in Kenya, which include Baringo, West Pokot, Samburu, Kitui, and Tharaka Nithi. And lately, there are counties that are non-traditionally beekeeping counties that are embracing beekeeping as an enterprise. And one of them includes Siaya County. A report, I think Siaya County started thinking of beekeeping seriously from around 2015, 2016. And in 2019, a report shows that in as much as the farmers have started embracing beekeeping, there was generally a decline in beekeeping in the county. And yet, the county has a huge potential because of some sub-counties that have what we could say characteristics that are good for beekeeping, comparable to those of the traditional beekeeping counties. So this study sought to document the knowledge of the existing beekeepers in Siaya County in order to guide in the interventions that we need to put in place to improve productivity in the county. Next slide. Next, please. So what did we do? We designed a study that's basically a baseline survey to collect data from apiculture groups that are affiliated to the Kenya's Climate Smart Agriculture Project. And as I said, apiculture is one of the value chains that was picked by Siaya County to be funded under the Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture Project. And so purposive sampling was done in the 3 sub-counties that were previously identified by the county, what we call a project coordinating unit. And these were the counties that were selected are Bondo, Rarieda, and Ugunja. And in each of these sub-counties, 2 wards were selected, which include, we'll talk about the details of the sub-county, so the wards in those sub-counties later. So in each of the 2 pre-selected wards per sub-county, individual beekeepers were selected again for interviews. And the initial target of 80 was set per sub-county. However, when the actual work was done in the field, we were only able to realize an average of 49 beekeepers per sub-county. Next. So in the table 1, we have a distribution of the sampled beekeepers per sub-county, ward, and you see that in Bondo we had 50 beekeepers that were interviewed, 18 coming from the East Timbo ward, 32 coming from West Sakwa. In Rarieda we had 61, 50 farmers from North Uyoma, 11 from West Esembo. In Ugunja we had 36, Sidindi having 14 and Ugunja having 22. So total number of beekeepers that were successfully interviewed were 147. The kind of data that was collected from these beekeepers, but generally the socio-demographic characteristics of the beekeepers that include education, includes the gender and the land size that they occupy, and so forth and so forth. There were also beekeeping production attributes and preferences that were documented, and then we also documented the major bee forage sources, timing of honey harvest and the quantities of honey harvested, and we also documented the factors that, according to the farmers, they feel affect productivity of honey in the area. After the data collection, the data that was collected was subjected into analysis, and descriptive statistics such as frequencies, percentages, and averages were generated, and this is what will be presented. This is what was used to analyze the beekeeper's socio-demographic characteristics, production attributes, knowledge of factors that affect productivity.
Experience practicality. Experience fun.
Next slide.
Recording stopped.
Hello? Hello.
Hello.
My name is Jafet Kizito Changolo. Hello? Hello?
Hello. I think you can let Troitich continue her presentation, please.
Okay, so the results, I'll begin with social-demographic characteristics of beekeepers in the sub-county. Descriptive statistics showed that the majority of beekeepers were male, 62% versus 38% which was female. Majority of these beekeepers were over 51 years of age, and most of them had attained at least some secondary school education. Most of the beekeepers own land individually, and the rest who did not own land
in progress.
individually, the land was owned by family. So you find situations where it is a son who is participating in the beekeeping, and he's allowed by the father to keep the beehives in the family land, or vice versa. Beekeeping also is a fairly new enterprise in Sia County, because 60% of the beekeepers had less than 5 years of beekeeping experience at the time when this data was being taken, which is in 2020. Next. So among the parameters that were assessed for beekeeping production characteristics were: one, the reasons why the beekeepers were keeping bees, and majority of the respondents, almost actually more than 90%, say they're doing beekeeping for extra income. And very few, the next reason why they keep beekeeping was for home consumption of bee products. We also looked at who owns the apiary, because that determines them if they can make decisions. And majority of
You have 1 minute remaining.
Which are the fathers, and the type of hives which are owned. Majority of the beekeepers prefer the Langstroth hive, followed by the top bar hive, Kenya top bar hive. Next. So we also looked at what are the source of sausage, forage for the bees, and majority of them mentioned a number of plants, most of them being cultivated crops. And also when we looked at the month of flowering, most of these plants were flowering between the month of March up till the month of June. Now we looked at this and compared to the time when they harvest honey, and we realized that the honey harvested was highest in February and July, where the farmers attained 14 and 15 kilograms per honey per hive respectively. And the lowest months were January and September. Next slide. So majority of the farmers said that low hive occupation was the major issues that they were having, and hive absconding also. That is what was affecting productivity. And when we looked at what are the factors that the farmers could say are the ones affecting hive occupation, majority of them said it's availability of forages, closely followed by proximity to water sources. There were also other factors, but the major ones that they cited were those two. When we looked at hive abscondment, this is whereby already the bees had occupied the hives, but after some time they leave. And we also asked what could be the reason. The major reason cited by most farmers is pests, including ants and the hive beetles and wax moths. And the second one that they cited was also very important, was extreme weather conditions, whether drought or heavy rainfall. Next. So from these results, we can say that Siaya being a non-traditional beekeeping county, we realized that there are two things that were very clear. The fact that most of the farmers had really few years of experience in beekeeping. The second one is that majority of the farmers were actually already adapting modern technology, because this was coming as, it was not something they are practicing traditionally, so it was very easy for them to adapt new technologies. The major sources of bee forage was mainly cultivated crops and some trees, most of which flower between the months of March and June. And this also happens to be the period, it coincides with the period of long rains, where there is a lot of crops being grown, and it shows that these actually crops are contributing to the amount of honey that they harvested. Now, the farmers said that they were able to harvest honey in February. However, they did not mention any flowering plants previously to this. But from our own evaluation of the area, we realized that they also have a short cropping season from the month of October and December, where they plant short season crops, and these could be the ones that are contributing now to food sources for the honey that they eventually harvest in February. And final slide. So this information is actually very important because one, honey production already, that 14 to 15 kilos is a good production of honey. It just requires to be sustained. And how this can be sustained is that we were able to identify from this study that management practices is one of the issues that we need to, the beekeepers in Sierra need to be trained on, because they are already adapting modern hive technology, and the county has huge potential for honey production. So with the major challenge of hive occupation and abscondment, and availability of forages and proximity to water sources is one of the major things that needs to be looked at when it comes to improving hive productivity in the county. And this can be addressed also with better hive management practices, which include increasing access to bee forages and water availability during what we call the dark periods, and mitigating also adverse environmental effects and managing pests. Next, final slide. So we want to acknowledge KESAP for funding this study. We also acknowledge the Sierra County government for giving us the opportunity to study in the county. We acknowledge Egerton University for giving us the platform to be able to carry out this study. And I acknowledge the farmers from Sierra County which participated in the study. And I also acknowledge you, the audience, for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Toritich. You've taken quite some time. Before we open the floor for questions, is Mr. Minor in? Okay. Since Mr. Minor seems not to be in, I think that's why, Toritich, I gave you more time to present. You took longer than the 12 minutes given. But before I open the floor for questions, let me ask you one question. It's a general question. This study was based on a project, given that you're working on a non-traditional area of beekeeping. Could the adoption have been influenced by the project itself, given that not very many people do bee production in Sierra?
Yes, this, as I said, that this is a Kenya Climate Smart Apiculture project funded by the World Bank, where they wanted counties to prioritize what they call a priority value chain that could improve the livelihoods of farmers. So the counties were supposed to look at what is going on and then select value chains that they feel if the farmers can be able to adapt, it will improve their livelihood. So Sierra County is one of the counties that selected apiculture as a value chain that is priority for them. And this is where now we were invited to go in and try to assess what are the training needs, and that is the basis for this study.
Okay, thank you. I think you should keep your answers very short and brief. I've seen like Mina has joined us. Mina, are you in? Mina? Can you unmute yourself and speak? I thought I saw a message. So any other question as we... Is there any other question from the panel? So is Mr. Minor in?
I can share, I can see that he's in. I'm seeing Obadia Mwangi. I think he's the same person.
Then he should speak, and because we only have 10 minutes, and you know after this session there should be another session going on, so we should transition to the other session. So Obadia, can you unmute yourself and quickly load your slides? and then present, and you have to be brief because we ate into your time. We didn't know that. We thought you were not in. Can you hear us? Oh, okay. You can start. You have 10 minutes. Please be brief. We can't hear you. Are you there? We can see the presentation, but we can't hear you.
Chair, I think somebody should unmute him. He is muted.
Can our IT people try and unmute him? Obadiah, Maina. But Maina, we can't hear you. You should join the audio. Click on join the audio, yeah? We can't hear you. On the extreme left, there is join with audio. You need to activate that so that we can hear you. When you are logging in, it usually asks you, do you join with audio? You need to click on that button so that you can be able to speak. Because we can't hear you. Can you log off and log in again very quickly? And please make sure that you join with audio. Because there's another session after this one, yeah? And that means that we are going to So has Maina joined us back again? I can see Paul Njoroge has raised their hand. Mine, I can see you're logged in. Can you join with audio so that you can be able to see you? Because the microphone is not even activated. Unmute, please. And in the meantime, if there are any questions to teach, panel can be asking them through the chat. So are you logged in now? Okay. Can you hear us now? Bwana Maina, hello? It should be that one, nobody. Actually, yes, I put it in, so I don't know. He's writing, I can see Egerton.
Chair, I'm seeing he's saying that he thinks his device has a problem.
I
He's
saw
trying
that.
to log in through another device.
Yeah.
And then he can we just need to inform the chair that if at all he'll be ready somewhere along the line, he can present even if it's later, so that we free the room for the next sub-thing.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, I guess now I'm in. I have just joined with my phone.
Okay.
Yes.
Then you can go ahead and present. Eh?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry for that.
And kindly be brief. Eh? Don't take a lot of time. Eh?
Yes, I'm going to be very brief. I'm not going to take that much time. I'm very sorry for that inconvenience. Okay, my name is Obadia Mwangi Maina. I'm going to be presenting on organic and conventional farming system, impact on soil, wheat seed bank, density and dominance in Olanga and Tharaka-Nithi County. My co-authors are Professor Monica Muna and Dr. Hortensia Mwangi and Dr. Peter Karanja. The outline of my study has just indicated maybe to the outline. I have the introduction, all that up to the conclusion. Onto the introduction, in the sub-Saharan Africa, one thing that we know is that there is a lot of high increment in population. In turn, resorting to food insecurity because of high demand of food. With this, on my study, I'm looking at the yield loss caused by weed, of which I'm able to get that in all the crop production in the world, weed participate in crop yield loss up to that 4%, which is a bit higher than that caused by pests and also by other pathogens. In my study, I'll be looking the farming practices and their impact on weed seed bank. That is organic and conventional. In organic, that is where we do farming without use of herbicide, without use of herbicide, and also without use of these synthetic fertilizers for the production. Whereas in conventional, we really emphasize on use of herbicide, use of sophisticated farming machinery, and also use of fertilizers and the like. In my study area, as you can see, it is Dika, it is at Tharaka-Nithi, and also on the other side in Molanga at Dika area. For the experimental design that we used so that we can be in a position to collect data, we were looking at the impact of this farming system, whereby a head for treatment in conventional high. In conventional high, we were using synthetic fertilizers, pesticide, and irrigation, and also we had organic high. In organic high, we were having organic fertilizers, log phosphate, and biopesticide and irrigation during the dry period. In conventional low, we had synthetic fertilizers, pesticide at limited rates. This one we were trying to mimic and what the farmers do, or these subsistent farmers does into their farms. In organic low, we had organic fertilizers with no any crop protection. For the conventional and organic high, we were looking at massive production, whereby it is majorly for the large-scale producers. We had 3-year crop rotation with our main crop during the long lane or long season being maize, and then we were rotating it for the first year with cabbage, then the second year with beans, then the third year with potato. Then we go to the next slide, slide number 6, on how I was correcting my data, my objectives versus the data correction and the laboratory analysis. Maybe you can go to slide number 6. Thank you. I was looking at the objective. The objectives, one was to determine the weed density in this for treatment, that is in organic and conventional farming system. Also to identify which are the dominant weeds within these farming systems, and also how crop rotation within this farming system affect the soil weed density or weed seed bank. The data corrected, we were collecting soil samples at the end of every season. And then we were correcting it using the Y method. Then the soil that we corrected, we were taking it to the laboratory, whereby we treated it with gibberellic acid and then press it in germination trays, watering it. And then we used the seed emerging method to identify the weed seed density and soil and also the weed soil seed bank within this farming system. To analyze the data for the determination of the density, we used the two-way analysis of variance, and also to determine the weed species or the diversity of the weed, we used the Simpson diversity index. And then to our results, on this one, I'm going to be more detailed a little bit. On this presentation, you're going to find that if you look onto the light side, where I have indicated the 4 treatment that I'm using, the blue colors that highlights the conventional high, you're going to find that there was high weed density across the conventional high. Maybe this one is attributed to its fact that there is high use of fertilizer. There is also high use of irrigation during the dry period. And also, if you look into the conventional low, you find that maybe due to limited use of the synthetic fertilizers, and also there is no use of irrigation. That's the reason why you find that weeds are not as much as in conventional high. The same case with organic high and also with the organic low. But one thing that you're able to look and to get is that during the 3-year crop rotation, there was a decline in weed density across all the farming system. But also, there is something else I like you to be in a position to look, and you are going to get it clear, that in organic high, weed seems to increase by the end of the 3rd year. The same case within the field in Chuka and also within the field in Thika. One thing I realized is that for the conventional farming system, there is low weed seed, it doesn't encourage the diversification of weed, but at time it encourages high weed density. The same case we are going to be in a position to get when we go to our slide number 10. But now when we go to slide number 8, when we were looking into the weed dominance.
3 minutes remaining.
Yes, and we look into the weed dominance in Thika, you find that for all the 13 weeds, because we were able to get 13 weeds within those farming system, we were able to get that the highest, the major dominant weed species in Dhika was Stellaria medium, and the less dominance was Procula, Valelacia, and also there was others that were still dominant, just as you can see in the illustration. The same case when you get to Chuka. In Chuka, the Galisonga variflora was the most dominant weed in all the farming system, whereas the Wilson indica was the less dominant within that press. It wasn't that much within that press. Now, when I get to the weed species diversity, I found that we were able to find that in organic law, it encouraged high weed diversity compared to the rest. If you look into this, you're going to find that organic law and organic high encouraged high weed diversity as compared to conventional high and conventional low. In organic farming, due to limited or due to because there is no use of herbicide, there is diversification of weed. So the weed diversity is always high in organic farming system, whereas it reduces in conventional farming system due to use of herbicide. The herbicide reduces the weed diversity, whereby only some of the weeds that are herbicide resistant are going to increase in numbers, and you find that they are going to be high. In my conclusion to my presentation, we were able to come up with a conclusion that conventional high encourages high weed density compared to organic farming system, whereas organic farming practices help to reduce soil weed seed bank and maintain high species diversity. The weed, because of the farming system that entails or comes with organic farming system, whereby there is use of crop rotation, there is use of cover crop and the like, you find that there is limited weed seed in the soil weed seed bank, but it encourages that there is a diversification of weed within that farming system. Also, we were able to notice that use of crop rotation in organic and conventional farming system help in reduction of weed seed bank in the soil weed seed bank. Our recommendation is that
your time is up.
On more study to be done on the economic aspect of weed management in the two farming system versus the yield of the crop. Thank you very much. I would like to acknowledge that this work was more funded by ICPE and also CIAT organization and also Kenyatta University. And also I'm grateful for the Egerton chance they have given me to do my presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Obadia. Maybe just an advice. Next time, kindly, you just try and do a dry run, where you see that you are able to connect to connect before even your time reaches, because we know technology the way it usually does. It lets us down at the last minute. Now, let me open the floor for questions. Kindly be very quick and brief. Any question from the floor? Doc, do you have a question?
Thank you very much, Obadia, for your presentation. I just have one question. Perhaps it's a clarification I'm seeking from you.
Okay.
So the increase in weed diversity with the organic farming, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
To me, it's a good thing, because we are trying to maintain the diversity as a result of the impact that comes with conventional farming system, whereby there is loss of some weed species that may be beneficial to the crop production because they bring in some bees for the pollination, whereas in the conventional, you find that the diversification of weed species goes down because there is elimination of those weeds.
Okay. But then now with the diversity, if you are to control the weeds when they are very diverse, don't you think it might actually be difficult? Because then you need, now you're dealing with different plant species. Don't you think that would be a challenge on how to control? For example, if you are to use the natural means, I know we use other plants as sources of some natural pesticides.
Yeah.
Now, supposing you want to use such a plant, and yet you have increased the diversity of the weeds, don't you think that actually will be creating a complication?
Okay, one of the major challenges that is faced by the organic farmers is the weed management. And that's the reason why they try so many different ways in the weed management. But one thing that these practices entails is to reduce the number of weed, but not to reduce the diversification of weed. So that is one of the major challenges because they entail the natural way of weed management, but on a diversified weed, that is one of the major challenges that comes in with organic farmers. That's the reason why our project was majorly to look into which farming system. Yes, it comes with some benefits on the production of grain food, but which one has the best way of weed management?
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Joshua, do you have a question? I can see your hand is up. If there is no other question,
Okay.
Is there another question? Like we said, you could put the question in the chat. If there is no other question, I would like to thank all the participants for this session. And as we transition to the next session, because our session for today is over, I'm encouraging the participant not to log off, but to kind of look for the break rooms that are relevant to their work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So I'm even being informed by the next chair that you can still continue because the next session is similar. It's on the same. Yeah, it's on environment and agriculture. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you all. A poll, I don't know for the IT, for this session. So kindly make sure that you fill the poll and before you exit. Thank you.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I welcome you to this session on innovation in climate change and natural resource management. With me is Professor Wambua, who is going to be the rapporteur, and my name is Professor Moturi. As you may see, Professor Boera was supposed to chair this session, but he was not able to. And Dr. Lenachuru was to be the rapporteur, but he's not in a position to do that. So we will be in charge of the session. We just want to be sure that we have everyone. We have 7 presenters. Is Ndeleko Baraza in? Maybe Professor Wambua, you can check from the screen. Ndeleko Baraza, if you are in, just put on your mic and say you are in, please. Ndeleko Baraza? Okay. Achieng J.O., or they are yet to log in. Maybe it's the transition. Do we have a Maru?
Yes.
Okay, Maru, welcome. Achien? Do you have, this is a difficult name, I hope I'll not pronounce it wrongly. Nyiramvu Rekure. Do we have Nyira? Kure? Is he in? Is Nyira in? I've shortened it. Do you have Njenga? Do you have Njenga? Okay. Do you have Ndeleko Baraza? Achieng J.O.? Achieng J.O.? Do you have Emaru L? Emaru, yes. So Emaru is going to be the first presenter because the first two are not in. Do you have Nyiramvu Yekure? Nyiramvu Yekure? Do you have Njenga? MW? We had Marie. Is Oduor ON in?
Yes, I'm in.
So we have three who are in. So we'll start with Emaru, then Njenga, then Marie. As the rest come in, as they log in, they will join us. So you have a 10-minute presentation, after which we will give you 3 or so minutes for questions. And the participants are also encouraged to write their questions in the chat so that the presenters can answer them in case there's time limitation. And the presentation should be in slideshow mode. And then it is good to note that at the end of this session, there'll be a poll. That is an evaluation. So it will pop up at the end of this session so that you can be able to fill it up. So after this session, we will go to the plenary where we'll wrap up. So please ensure that you follow those instructions for smooth running. So Emaru, are you ready for the presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, just log it on. Share the screen so that you can begin the presentation, and I will start timing when you start.
It seems someone else is trying to share because it's not allowing me to do so.
Maybe the ICT team can assist us. Someone else is doing the screen sharing. Please enable the participant to share his screen. Are you now able to start screen sharing? Okay. So 10 minutes begins from now. It is 3 or 4, so you should be done by 3:14. Welcome.
Maru, please unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
Oh, now you can hear me?
Yes, you were muted before. Continue.
Oh. Okay. I'm called Anthony Maru, and I'm co-author with Prof. Liu. I'm working on a review on covering material use in the management of greenhouse aphids during vegetable production. This is the outline. I will have introduction, materials, methods, and research, and then a conclusion. As you can see, these are the type of different covering materials that are being used during greenhouse production. The introduction. Vegetables are essential source of vitamins, minerals, fibers, and micronutrients and other bioactive compounds that are very useful for human and our human body activities. However, there are abiotic and biotic factors that are continuously affecting the quality and the yield that makes us have the quality and a yield below the recommended rate. And then about 30 to 7% of the yield and quality loss in vegetable production in field is attributed to insect pests, particularly aphids in common. However, this is then making it a challenge that however much we go out of out of field production to bring in greenhouse production, but it is also still faced with low yield and quality. That is due to the high infestation of different pests, in particular also aphids.
Emaru, we've lost you.
I am trying, the slide is kind of refusing to move. Sorry about that. Let me just first do this and maybe start it afresh. Okay, so I can continue. Therefore, there is need for different several methods that need to be brought up in order to counteract the effects of these insect pests during production, so that we can minimize the economic losses that most farmers are incurring, and yet every farmer, at the end of the day, wants to make profit. So these different methods need to come out. So we have seen that there is use of greenhouse, but not only use of greenhouse, there is also now a modification. There is modifying of the greenhouse covering materials that have the ability to repel the insect pest, or have the ability to counteract or interfere with the movement, the reproduction, or the behavior of the insect, so that we can manage them in the greenhouse as compared to use of more of the synthetic chemicals, which have negative impact to either the environment and human life as well. So this also in the long run, because once we reduce the use of insecticide or those harmful insecticide, synthetic insecticide, then that means we are helping to mitigate the effect that they would put to our environment, but as well as maintaining maintaining the population of the insects below the economic injury level. Therefore, this review intends to evaluate the recent development in the use of greenhouse covering materials in the management of insects, but in particular aphids. The material and methods. In this review, we document the use of greenhouse covering materials in the management of insect pests, in particular aphids. Through the review, there was a critical, empirical, and gray literature used, such where we use terms like greenhouse covering material and insect pest control and management. We've used different searching engines, journals like Research for Life, Web of Science, and many others. The results. We found out that covering materials such as the use of UAV absorbing materials, insect-proof nest, the long-lasting insect nets have been used in order in the management of insect work. For example, when we use the UV absorbing lights, absorbing covering materials, they are able, because most of the insects, for example, in particular the aphids, they use these UV lights, for example, the UVB, to like have their activities moving, for example, like in their movement, in their like reproduction. So once we absorb and we have these materials that can absorb a lot of these UV lights, then that means we are interrupting the behavioral activities of most of these insects, for example, the aphids. We have also found that these research was done and found out that the UV absorbing polythenes were able to reduce the cabbage aphid reproduction rate. This was a research done in Egypt, and it was effective cost-wise, and it was able to maintain the population below the economic injury level. We also have the anti-aphid nets that have been developed. These they also have the property where they counter-react with they interrupt the behavior of insects, so they repel. Like when aphids come closer, they are able to have that property that able to repel. Then also we can have the colored nets, that is the black and white. They have also proven, and then we also have the nanoparticles, embedded chemicals that have been embedded in these greenhouse covering materials that are able to help in the management. There is also low light density polythenes covering films. This also have shown, this was a research done in Germany, and they found that this was able to manage the aphid population, to reduce its incidence and population to the population level, to below the injury level. So in conclusion, we found out that after review, we found out that one of the most important development or advancement is the use of UV in UV absorbing materials. Then they also insect-proof colored nets, the nano, but mostly the UV, because it was effective, more effective compared to the rest. But however, they are also still able to manage the population and incidence of this pest. However, it is good that these are innovations that are coming up, but they also come up with a short outcome. For example, the use of these advanced covering materials that are able to repel or counteract with the ecology and the breeding system of most of these insects. They are very expensive for most time for a smallholder farmer to afford. They also, because when these levels, the layers, the different layers are added that are embedded on those polythenes, they intend to transmit a lot of heat. That means a farmer will at the end need to develop or employ or put in more mechanism to reduce heat. They also can reduce the efficiency of the greenhouse in terms of light, but not below 50%. That it is still able to reduce about 70%, which is still good, but not as compared to when they are not embedded, which can go to around 80. The other disadvantage about this is that sometimes some of them can indiscriminately repel insects, even those that are important, that are very good, that should be in the greenhouse, like for pollination, like for the bees. They are able to do that. So that is one of the bottlenecks of this advancement recommendation. Therefore, we also this review also comes out and say there should be a need to do like more of a benefit cost analysis to see how, yes, the advancement is coming, but how is it cost effective for a smallholder farmer? Is it how best can it be? And maybe research to have selective, maybe to come up with a different embedment that are selective to specific insect species, so that we don't exclude the more important insects. Then also policy development to regulate the price of this, because we discover that when you find about the costing, most of different companies that do this, their prices is not regulated, and when it comes to the market, you find that they tend to increase, maybe probably to try to cover up, but then it becomes expensive in the long run. Then there is also need for proper dissemination of information in regard to the benefit of using these modified things, so that many people can get to know how useful and how beneficial, and in the long run, someone can benefit in case you decide to invest in it. Then in the long run, it can give you back in return. Thank you.
Thank you, Emaru, for that good presentation. Now we want to invite questions from the participants. And even as we await the questions, I have two questions that you can be responding to. The first one is, now that you have given the benefits and the limitations of this, of using this covering material in greenhouses, then what is the future? What is the potential? Do you see it as a potential in enhancing green agriculture? That is the first question. Then you talked about the cost-benefit analysis. Which cost-benefit analysis would you recommend? Is it only the economics, or which other would you recommend? Because also it would be good to do an ecological cost-benefit analysis to see that this is an eco-friendly enterprise. So maybe you can answer those questions as we await questions from other participants.
Thank you so much. I do appreciate. I'll start with the second one. I would recommend both to you to do the cost-benefit analysis for both the ecology and the economic aspect. Then the other is that when we're doing this review, found out that certain countries, like for example Israel, they have adopted this technology. However much it is the initial capital is high, it's much. The government has reduced, it's like subsidized for many of the farmers, so that they are towards that making, because certain papers say it is eco-friendly, because it also the levels of greenhouse emission is less compared to others which are not embedded. Yeah, but that is the few reasons. But I would think that if this is a very good for the future, because not only will it save the farmers from using continuously buying insecticide, synthetic insecticide that have detrimental negative effects to both human life and the environment, but it will also save them in a long run. In maybe, let's say, at least 2 years, you'll find that you have saved what could have cost you maybe in more than that.
Now that you have indicated that it's only expensive in the short term and more cost-effective in the long run, when you are doing your literature review, did you come across a literature that alludes to that? And also you have said that in Israel they are using it. Have they found ways of making the insecticide to be more selective for the pests that they want to target in Israel?
In Israel, that was one of the challenge. Actually, the recommendation that I've had is that I picked from that paper. It says, yes, it is very effective, but the only challenge they are having is they are having the challenge that it is able to repel also other insects that are very beneficial, because Israel as a country is facing a lot of like they have beneficial insect. They have it in low population compared to other countries. So that is a very big challenge. So that is why they are opting for use of bubble bees inside. They just have to introduce them inside, which also, if you sometimes it become costly if someone has to reintroduce the bubble beans, maintain the colony. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let's get other questions from the audience. Any other question from the audience? Yes, there's one here from the rapporteur.
Hello, thank you for that interesting presentation. My concern is on this UV covering, that material that absorb UV. What effect do you think it has regarding the humidity and also the temperature, and does it also affect this environment where these aphids can be able to flourish?
Thank you for the question. One of the important things about aphids is that they are very unique. They use, if there is no UV in an environment, that affects directly their vision. If your greenhouse, once you reduce the amount of UV light inside your greenhouse, they will not be able to see. And if accidentally they enter, they will not be able to differentiate between the plants. They will not be able to differentiate their host. This affects their vision. That is the primary thing. It also affects their mating. It also affects their general behavior, that they will not be, it will be like they are in another strange environment that directly affects their harmfulness. However, the other thing that I noted is that when we use these UV embedded covering materials, it comes at a cost, because you're doubling. The process is that you double layers. These layers are double. They are like 3 layers double. So that means your greenhouse is getting a covering material that a more thicker layer. Now, what cost comes in? It's that you're going to have excess heat in your greenhouse. That means if there is absorption of heat, or maybe that is being produced by the soil, it is moving. So that means you're not able to, the heat will not easily be dispersed to the environment. That means that means you have to develop other mechanisms or employ other strategies in order to manage those aspects like heat, even light as well. That means you need to continuously do cleaning of your material so that you have that, you keep maintaining the light penetration or transmission within your greenhouse.
Okay, thank you. I don't know whether there are any other questions before we invite Njenga to make his presentation. I don't know whether there are other presenters who have logged in. Any other presenters who have logged in, who are not in when we were beginning? In case you are there, you can unmute your mic and please speak out your name, because there are some who are logged in not using their real names, I think. So in case you come on board, you can even use the chat to let us know that you are on board. So thank you very much, Emaru. That is very interesting, an interesting review of aspects of green agriculture. So let's have Njenga. Njenga, are you ready? Oh, it was not Njenga, was it? It was Nyiramvu. I'm sorry, the name I may mispronounce. Nyiramvu Yekure? Because there were 3 presenters who were in. So let's have Marie presenting, because there were 3 when we began. I thought Njenga was in. Or was it Odur?
Yes, I'm in.
Odur, you're in?
Yes, I'm in.
Good. So we'll have you presenting, then Marie. Sorry, we can go in that order.
Okay.
Odur, you can start sharing your screen.
Recording stopped.
We can see your screen. Can you put it in presentation mode, please?
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is the opportunity to present my yield components of sorghum, soil chemical properties and efficiency as affected by integrated soil management practices. My name is Nathan Oduor, and I'm being co-authored by Professors Daniel Mugendi, Monica Musheru Huna, Jane Mugwe, the late Isas Jali, Rumax, and Ian Piels. That is the order in which I'll present, from introduction all the way to results and discussion. In my background is that agriculture contributes about 61% of the Kenyan GDP, but then it's even the Vision 2030, it has a fair share of its own contribution economic development of the nation. However, this might not be the case because the agricultural productivity is declining over time, and this is due to the decline in soil fertility. It is noted that up to 30 kilograms of nitrogen and 20 kilograms of potassium is lost per hectare in most of the arable lands in Kenya. And this is because of the leaching losses, the surface runoff losses, the nutrient mining, and poor soil management by the farmers, where farmers continuously plow, do not add soil amendment, nor add amendments that might improve soil hydrological properties. So while some of these practices, while there are some technologies that have been suggested and researched that can avert some of these challenges, there is still declining agricultural productivity. This is because most of the technology are being used in isolation, such that either it improves soil, it reduces losses, or improves nutrient in the soil. While holistic improvement of crop productivity requires an holistic approach where both the losses are conserved and also the nutrients are amended concurrently at the same time. So therefore, the study sought to integrate some of the soil fertility and soil and water conservation practices on soil chemical properties, crop yield, and nutrient use efficiency in the drylands of Tharaka Nithi County in Kenya. So materials and methods. So the study was conducted, the study area, it was conducted in Karini Mixed Secondary School in Tharaka South Sub-County, Tharaka Nithi County in Kenya. And at the site, the soils were the ferrosol type ferrosols, and in some portions were the vertisols. The temperature around the region range, the mean annual temperature was about 7 degrees Celsius, with rainfall ranging about mean rainfall about 800 millimeters that's annually. And the site was at an altitude of about 800 meters above sea level, and the region was in the lower Midland 5, characterized by low rainfall, and which is highly unreliable in that region. The experimental design. So the experiment was laid in the experimental design was in 2 sets. There was a split plot design arranged in RCBD, and then there was a randomized complete block design. This was due to the aspect that most of the factors were not balancing. But and for the case of this study, I will for this presentation I will focus on the split plot design approach. So in the split plot design, the soil fertility inputs were the subplot factor, while the soil and water conservation practices were the main plot factor. So the main plot factors were the minimum tillage with mulch, the tight ridging, and conventional tillage, while the subplot factors were manure plus fertilizer, and a low, moderate, and high N application rate. Where low application rate, the moderate was the recommended nitrogen application rate, which is 60 kilogram per hectare, where fertilizer contributed half and animal manure half. The low was half of that, and high was double the recommended rate. Data collection and analysis. So for the soil chemical properties, soils were sampled before and at the end of the experiment, and then they were taken to the laboratory for the chemical analysis. And for the crop yield, crop yield, grain and above ground biomass were harvested at the end of every season, because the experiment ran for 4 seasons, that is between long rain 2019 and short rain 2020. However, the nutrient use efficiency was calculated using the agronomic efficiency, nitrogen use efficiency as per the formula, which was the change in the crop yield between the fertilized plot and an unfertilized plot over the amount of fertilizer and nitrogen fertilizer applied. So for the soil chemical properties of various nutrient analysis, the standard procedures were used for different chemical nutrients. And then for statistical data analysis, all the analyses were done in SAS software, where for the change in soil chemical properties, a paired t-test was used, and also ANOVA to determine the change at the end of the best performing technology in terms of boosting chemical property at the end of the experiment. However, for the study, I'm focusing on the paired t-test only. While for the nutrient use, the crop yield and nutrient use efficiency, the two-way analysis of variance was used with the Tukey's HSD test used for mean separation at 95% level of confidence. So results and discussions. So this is the rainfall pattern during the study period, indicating high seasonal variability, with the the long rains having the lowest rainfall amount and high variability compared to the short rains, where the short rains received up to the short rains 2019 received up to over 1,300 millimeters of rainfall within a season, while long range 19 received as low as less than 200 millimeters within a season. So indicating high variability and high unreliability during the long range. So treatment effect on cell chemical properties is the t-test, where the technologies before and after the experiment were observed. So generally the soil pH never changed before and after the experiment. The same was for nitrogen level, which also never changed except during the under the Billy intercrop technology, because of the aspect of addition of because of the aspect of the nitrogen fixation by the legumes. Also, the soil organic matter only changed under manure plus fertilizer under low. When I say low, is 30 kilogram of N per hectare, under low N application rate under conventional tillage, and also under the Billy intercrop. So this might have been attributed to the fact that most of the low application rate of fertilizer did not encourage mineralization of some of the organic matter in the soil, because it's known that when you make there's a use of both organic and mineral fertilizer, the rate of mineralization of the organic matter is increased. And as for the phosphorus, generally the phosphorus changed positively, or the phosphorus increased significantly across all the treatments. And this is as can be attributed to the fact that phosphorus was continuously supplemented during every season using the TSP fertilizer. This was even an effort to ensure that the effect of peak capitalization does not arise, such that the plants have optimal yield, devoid of any form of feed efficiency. Equally, the potassium also improved positively in few plots where there was manure plus fertilizer plus minimum tillage with crop rescue mulch and a low N application rate, also under manure plus fertilizer, under conventional tillage, under the moderate rate of N application, and also under manure plus fertilizer with minimum tillage with crop residue with mulch and moderate nitrogen application. So for the treatment effect on sorghum grain yields, generally both the soil and water conservation practices and integrated soil fertility management practices improved the grain and stover yield. So under soil and water conservation practices, minimum tillage with the mulch was the best in improving the grain yield, and this can be attributed to both the grain and stover yield. This can be attributed to the fact that minimum tillage is able to enhance water use efficiency because it reduces the water losses, and considering water is a very key production factor for crops. This was followed closely by dry regions, which also has ability to conserve water and enhance water use efficiency, especially under low rainfall regions. As for the soil and water integrated soil fertility management practices, high fertilization rate, which is 120 nitrogen rate per hectare, was the best in improving both the grain and stover yield, followed by the moderate rate, which was 60 kilogram, and with the low rate, which is 30 kilogram of N per hectare, having the least improvement in grain and stover yield. And this is because the more nitrogen is supplied, the more yield is expected, because it's a major nutrient that has helped boost the crop growth and development. And so generally, the integrated effect of the soil and water conservation practice and soil fertility management practices, the best combination was minimum tillage with mulch and a high fertility rate, which is 120 kilogram of N per hectare across the season. As for the water use efficiency, the best soil and water conservation practices again was minimum tillage with mulch because of its ability to conserve water losses through evapotranspiration, through direct runoff, and even especially the two are the major ones that it conserves. And this made it have the highest nitrogen use efficiency. As for the integrated soil fertility management, again, the highest nutrient use efficiency was under low nitrogen application rate, which was 30 kilograms of N per hectare. And this was because equal amount of yield was, there was equal production of amount of yield with less amount of nitrogen, give nitrogen application. And given that the increase in nitrogen application did not necessarily lead to an equivalent increase in crop yield. And this could be because of other factors which might have curtailed the increase in crop growth. So unless all other factors are improved, crop production factors are improved, even with the improvement in increase in the fertilization rate might not necessarily mean there will be an equivalent increase in the yield. So in terms of the integrated approach, the best combination was minimum tillage with mulch and low rate, that is 30 kilogram of N per hectare, having the best or the highest nitrogen use efficiency. So in conclusion, is that the 120 kilogram of N per hectare, that is the high rate plus minimum tillage with mulch, was the highest in terms of crop yield improvement, both the grain and stover yield, while the best combination in enhancing water use, nitrogen use efficiency was the 30 kilogram of nitrogen per hectare plus minimum tillage with mulch. So I would recommend that 60 kilogram of nitrogen per hectare plus minimum tillage with mulch to be adopted for improved crop and nutrient use for economic sustainability, because the high rate, while it produce the 120 kilogram, while it might improve the yield, it is not very economical in terms of nutrient use efficiency. Therefore, the best rate would be the moderate, which is the 60 kilogram of N per hectare. Thank you. So I would like to acknowledge the Viliruos project for funding the start in collaboration with the Leuven, University of Embu, Kenyatta University, Calro, and University of.
Thank you, Odror, for that very interesting presentation that has come up with very interesting insights regarding sorghum growth. So can we please have questions from the audience? Questions from the audience? Yes, there's one here.
Thank you for that interesting presentation. Mine is a small one, especially concerning the effect of minimum tillage and mulch in nitrogen use efficiency. Maybe, although your research might have been limited to the scope that you are covering, but my main interest is to do with the water, soil water content, because these two elements could be affecting moisture content in the soil, and because nitrogen, actually for the plants to absorb nitrogen, it should dissolve in the water. So did you maybe have any other data or information on water moisture content in the soil? Maybe you could expand if you had.
Yes, maybe if I can respond to that, that indeed I also have information. I actually collected soil moisture concurrently during the study. So I have data on soil moisture, and again, it has indicated that minimum tillage with mulch at the highest was the best in terms of soil and water conservation, or in terms of water use efficiency. It was the best practice across the season and different rainfall regimes.
So what can you say about that?
That for improvement in crop yield, it should be an holistic approach where both the production factors need to be enhanced concurrently. So that's why we looked at the soil water aspect and even the fertility of the soil aspect. So I would say that a minimum tillage was able to perform the best across most of the soil and water conservation, and so was the high fertilization rate.
Thank you. I have another question. Given that people now are adopting more and more the traditional crops, and especially those that can withstand drought, you find that sorghum in Kenya, it is a crop that is grown in the more arsal areas, because people tend to, for the high potential areas, they grow other crops maybe that need more moisture and more rain. They tend to grow sorghum in the drier areas. What can you tell a farmer who comes from the drier areas from the research that you have undertaken? What would be the take-home message for a farmer in the drier areas of Kenya?
For the dryland, even the study was conducted in the dryland region, and sorghum is one of the drought-tolerant crops, alongside the green gram, which is again promoted in those dryland places. But despite being the drought-tolerant, with changes in the weather patterns and climatic variation, sometimes the dry spell becomes too long even for the drought-tolerant crops to survive. So we encourage them that even as much as they plant drought-tolerant crops, they try to use some of these technologies for soil and moisture conservation to help cushion even some of these drought-tolerant crops, especially during the extreme dry spell.
Okay, thank you. Do you have other questions from the audience? You can raise your hand or write in the chat. Any question? Any question for the presenter? Thank you very much, Oduor. That was a very interesting presentation, especially given that now we are being encouraged to embrace the traditional crops that are even more nutritious. So we are going, do you have any other presenters who have joined us, who are not in when we were beginning the session? If there are any, we advise you to notify us via the chat. So we are going to the last presentation from Marie. Marie, can you please start your screen sharing? Marie, are you with us? Did we lose him? He had responded? Marie? Okay. Do we have, because there are some who had responded, but we seem to have lost them. Nyiramvuye Kure? Do we have Nyiramvuye Kure? Okay. I thought Marie had responded. It seems like we lost him. Do you have any other presenter? Maybe then in that case, we have come to the end of the presentations, and we want to thank the presenters very much for enlightening us on the research that they're undertaking, and we hope that this will go a long way in improving food security as well as conserving our environment. So we urge you, oh sorry, somebody is informing us that Nyiramvuye Kure has gone to hospital. So we are sorry about that, and we wish him quick recovery. So you can, Joseph, you can convey our best wishes to him, and we wish him quick recovery. So I urge you to go back to the main session, the plenary, and I hope you know how to do that. You click on the right-hand corner, leave room, then you go, it will take you to other options where you'll get the poll. You'll get the poll where you'll fill out the poll. So thank you very much. On the right-hand corner, you'll see leave room. You click there. Don't say, when you click leave room, then you click on leave out, leave breakout room. Don't leave the meeting. Click on leave breakout room, then it will take you to the main session. And there you are going to get the poll and fill it. We value your response. Thank you very much.
Recording in progress.